Now let's talk about evolutionary theories, and it's tied to criminal behavior. Okay, so I find these to be the most interesting of all the biological trait theories. And after I explain them, I think you'll understand what I mean by that. So this looks at the process of natural selection, how over the course of time, we as human beings evolve. And there are certain characteristics and traits in us that become ingrained through the evolutionary process. So through natural selection, there are traits that will die off, but those that are necessary for survival will remain. So this theory tends to focus on aggressive behavior, particularly in males. And they link that aggressive behavior um, to the sexuality of males most of the time. So they point out that males tend to be more aggressive and predisposed to committing crimes because they're in competition with other men, especially for the sexual attention of other women. So here is their supporting evidence that men will seek out as many sexually attractive and suitable partners as possible to procreate with. And aggressive men tend to dominate. So the more aggressive, the more powerful a man is physically, the more likely he is to have access to females sexually. So this theory in its extreme um, almost sounds like it's justifying sexual assaults of women, arguing that men being out of control of their sexual impulses may pursue women aggressively for sex and try to dominate and rape them because the purpose here is that they want to continue the human species. So they look at primate groups, how among gorillas and primates, male primates are more aggressive towards females for sexual purposes. And some of that procreation looks like rape. So they're saying these patterns of behavior are repeated among human males. Secondly, men will engage in violence when there's a threat of losing a partner to a rival, especially if that partner is young and attractive. So if it's an older man who's in a sexual relationship with a younger woman, he may become violent and jealous if he feels he's going to lose her to a rival, typically a younger male. And then third and finally, and I find this theory to be most interesting of all, cheater theory, which argues that sons will inherit irresponsible or promiscuous traits from their fathers. So there may be a man who seeks out a female partner, and that female partner may have children out of wedlock with other men, and he becomes sexually involved with her, gets her pregnant, and then abandons her for another woman. And that woman gives birth to a son who will repeat this pattern of behavior. So this is called cheater theory. So these are men who, sort of like the Papa was a rolling stone, wherever he laid his hat was his home. He has sex with women, makes babies, abandons the children, and moves on to another partner. If a son is born to that union, he will repeat that behavior. So instead of seeing this as learned behavior, or having or a factor of maybe the cultural community in which he is growing up, they see this as some type of biological trait. It gets kind of dangerous because it tends to typecast certain groups. So you do see this pattern of abandoning children in relationships, probably more commonly among poor Black men. This is not a biological trait, I assure you. Oftentimes it is the result of poverty and some other factors, but it is also behavior that can be traced back to slavery when men, Black male slaves who were known as bucks, were expected to procreate with female slaves, and then those babies would be sold off, or he would be sold off to other plantations. So the family unit was never recognized as legitimate. So there are a lot of social and historical explanations for this type of pattern in urban poor families of color, and biological explanations are the least of these.